gigacoasters, launch coasters, and hypercoasters. I'm Rollercoaster David, and this is Coasting into Carowinds. Carowinds lies between North and South Carolina, and would be the first stop on my most recent visit to the United States. The first leg of my trip would also include Six Flags Over Georgia and Dollywood, and if you're planning a trip to this area, this trio of parks makes a great round trip. Carowinds is a huge park with no less than 14 roller coasters, and because my visit coincided with their Halloween event, this meant that there were lots of scare zones and mazes to experience as well. The highlight of the park, though, has to be the incredible Fury 325, the tallest gigacoaster in the world. So today I'm at Carowinds riding this absolutely amazing coaster, Fury 325. Fury 325 is a breathtaking coaster and can be seen for miles around when driving to the park. It opened in 2015 and still holds the record for the tallest lift hill on any coaster on the planet, standing at 325 feet tall. It reaches speeds of 95 miles an hour and also holds a record as the longest coaster in America. It's won numerous awards since opening and has been rated the #1 steel coaster in the world by Amusement Today magazine's Golden Ticket Awards for the last 4 years running. You get a great view of the park from the top of the lift hill, and the drop that follows is simply breathtaking, seeming to last forever as you fly out of your seat and reach the ride's top speed. The pull-out from the drop is pretty forceful too, causing me to experience a bit of grey out on several rides. The rest of the layout is great fun too, with high-speed curves and twists close to the ground before hitting a unique turnaround where the train dives over the park's entrance, then pulls up, twisting, so you have this great sideways floater airtime moment before the train catches you and you're dragged back under the entrance at a great speed. After more high-speed twists, you hit several big airtime hills that I'd say have stronger airtime than on any other B&M Hyper or Giga. The mixture of positive and negative G, high speed and a great layout all add to make this one of the best roller coasters in the world. Night rides are particularly good too, especially in the front seat where you really feel the speed with the wind blasting you in the face. One great coaster memory I have was riding this coaster a couple of years ago on the 4th of July weekend, where America typically tries to blow up the sky with fireworks. Going up the lift hill during the fireworks display gave some amazing views, and the ride was so tall that the fireworks were actually exploding below me. Now compared to the other Giga coasters, Millennium Force, Intimidator 305, Leviathan and Steel Dragon 2000, I'd rank this as my second favourite, with only the incredibly insane Intimidator 305 besting it in terms of its sheer speed rush and intensity. Speaking of Intimidator 305, there's a hypercoaster in the park that opened in the same year and bears the same name, minus the 305 part. Intimidator also shares the same NASCAR theme, but it feels a lot more restrained and sedated in comparison. This isn't just in the size difference, but also in more subtle ways too. For example, both rides start with the iconic line, "Gentlemen, start your engines!" But the Gigacoaster version is said with much more enthusiasm and energy, while the Carowinds ones feels much more sedate, almost like it's holding back and not getting too excited. It undoubtedly stands in the shadow of its namesake coaster, and some have even given it the nickname Intimidator, due to the trims in the ride reducing the airtime, but I still find it a fun coaster, and I don't think the trims are that bad. I think it complements Fury quite well, as it gives a different kind of ride, the one that's sort of typical of B&M Hypers, with plenty of sustained floater air, a smooth ride, and great rerideability. New to the park this year, and my first new coaster of the trip, was Copperhead Strike. Copperhead Strike is the newest coaster they have here at Carowinds. It's pretty good fun. It's a multi-launch Mack coaster, although the launches aren't all that powerful. The second one in particular is not very powerful at all, and you can almost barely feel it when the ride's fully warmed up. The rest of the track has some nice twisty bits. There's actually some fairly strong airtime on it, which surprised me a bit. I thought it was going to be a bit on the more gentle side. But yeah, the airtime was pretty strong. There's lots of hang time in the inversions, which is good fun. And it's just a fun sort of twisty layout. It's a good, really good addition to Carowinds. I'd say it compares quite favourably to Icon at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, albeit with more hang time and some stronger airtime. Whilst it's nowhere near as good as Helix at Liseberg, it's good to see Mack building some more coasters in America, and I wouldn't be too surprised if we see several similar rides popping up at other Cedar Fair parks in the next few years. It's also quite nice to see some effort going into the theming of a ride, with some props and buildings dotted around the queue line, and even a pre-show section before the first launch, things you don't typically see in American parks outside of Disney and Universal. It definitely filled a gap in Carowinds' lineup, as I don't think the park's had a launch coaster since their Schwarzkopf shuttle loop was removed over 30 years ago, and a launch coaster was something sorely missing from the park. The launches themselves are kinda weak though, and lack the punch of other multi-launch coasters like Taron or Maverick. Mack just can't seem to make powerful launches like Intamin can, although the slower launch and compact twisty layout does at least make for a longer ride time. I do still think that it would be better if they could keep the same top speed, but increase the rate of acceleration so it reached that speed faster and felt more forceful. Apart from the underwhelming launches though, it's a fun, well-paced and very re-rideable coaster, and makes a solid addition to Carowinds' overall lineup. Unfortunately, not all the coasters at Carowinds are as great, with the truly awful coaster Nighthawk being the worst of the bunch.
That was kind of unpleasant. Just the Nighthawk, the flying ducks that they have here. That one. It's not good. It's uncomfy, it's juddery. It's not a good coaster.
It may look impressive and stand out with its bright yellow track and blue supports, and it's even quite nice to film off-ride, but don't be fooled, this ride is uncomfy, rough, and always has long queues due to the slow loading process. If it's your first visit to the park, however, it's probably still worth riding due to its rarity and historic value. It opened in Carowinds in 2004, but prior to that, it operated under the name Stealth at California's Great America near San Jose. When it opened, this Vekoma-manufactured coaster was the first ever large-capacity flying coaster in the world, and there's only one other similar coaster still in operation, although that's probably a good thing, given how bad this one is. I'll cover the rest of the coasters later in this video, but I'd like to talk a bit about their Halloween event too. For this, the park is renamed SCarowinds, or SCarowinds. I'm not entirely sure how you're meant to pronounce it. It operates as a separate ticketed event from the park's daytime activities, and unlike other parks, it closes for a couple of hours before sunset and reopens in the evening in this spooky guise. For my trip, I actually visited the park over the course of 2 days, doing the haunts on the Friday night and concentrating on the coasters during the daytime on Saturday. To kick things off, it all started with the Overlord's Awakening, where you're welcomed to the park in a short show and warned of the terrors to follow.
The night calls, the darkness close. The light is dim, we now begin. Tonight, we desecrate this place with more terror, blood, and gore than ever before. Fear is waiting for you.
The overall atmosphere in the park was pretty good, improved with the fact that you get a variety of beers at several stalls spaced throughout the park. The haunts themselves were quite decent too, mostly following the usual horror tropes such as a hospital, corn maze and slaughterhouse, but there were a couple of more original ones too. One took place in an abandoned Hollywood movie studio, and to increase the scare factor, the lights were turned out and you were given a torch to find your way around. The scare zones dotted throughout the park were quite well done too, and along with the usual creepy clowns and chainsaw-wielding maniacs, there was a pirate-themed scare zone that was quite good, and a medieval zone which included an animatronic dragon, and I think it was new for this year. Similar to other Cedar Fair parks, there was also a seemingly Brexit-themed area of the park called Fleet Street, showing the horrors we have to look forward to now that the UK's left the EU. Back to the coasters though, there's a neat B&M invert called Afterburn, which used to have the Top Gun brand back when the park was run by Paramount. It brings a bit of old school aggression to the park with a fast ride with plenty of strong G-force. The most intense part of the ride is probably in the rarely seen Batwing element, but there's also a hill over the station that just about gives a bit of airtime, which is quite rare for this kind of coaster. There's also a fourth B&M coaster, but unfortunately it's a stand-up one, and as such, bashes your ears and head quite badly, particularly if you're as tall as I am. I ended up skipping it on this visit, but it does look quite pretty when viewed from the Nighthawk queue. Wooden coasters are something that's a bit lacking at Carowinds though. Currently there's two, Hurler and the family coaster Woodstock Express, but when I first visited the park, it also had Thunder Road, a huge racing wooden coaster. I was lucky enough to ride it in its final year of operation, and it was a good ride that I was sorry to see close and dismantled in favour of a water park expansion. As such, Hurler is the only decent sized wooden coaster in the park, and if I'm being honest, it's not that great.
I do wonder if Hurler's days might be 100.
Especially as a clone of this coaster at King's Dominion recently had an RMC conversion, and an RMC is something that would really add to this park. Whilst I'd personally prefer that the park get a new modern wooden coaster, I certainly wouldn't say no to something similar to Twisted Timbers. The final coaster worth mentioning is Carolina Cyclone, which is notable for its rather colourful paint job, and the fact that it still gives a decent ride despite being nearly 40 years old. Because I was running on a fairly tight schedule in order to maximise the number of parks I could visit on this trip, I had to leave the park slightly before closing on the Saturday.
So just finished the day at Carowinds here with a final ride on Fury 325. It's an awesome coaster, just that drop is immense. So now I've got the fun of driving all the way to Six Flags in Georgia. About 4 hours, so I better get cracking. And so ends my time here this year at Carowinds. It's been absolutely great fun. It's a fantastic park, Fury's amazing, Intimidator's really good, and the new coaster is really fun as well. I think it probably gives Icon a run for its money. It's still not as good as Helix. Anyway, it's time for me to now hit the road as I've got a long drive to Six Flags over Georgia.
It was a fairly uneventful drive, although I did go past a rather unusual giant peach water tower. I arrived pretty late at Six Flags over Georgia, but my hotel was right next to the park, and I could actually hear the roller coasters from my room. I was pretty tired, but couldn't resist going in and getting my first ride on Twisted Cyclone. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode from Carowinds. If you have, why not watch some of the other videos I've made from different parks around the world, and stay tuned for my full episode from Six Flags over Georgia. For now, I've been Rollercoaster David, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another video very soon.